Hello, everyone. This is your host, Susan Rosen, and today my guest is Dr. Wendie Trubow. And Wendie is actually, I don't even know what your licensing and all of that kind of stuff
I can fill in the
is.
blanks.
That's exactly. And so I'm going to have Wendie introduce herself because she's going to do a much better job than I would.
Thanks, Susan.
Welcome,
It's great to
Wendie.
be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Wendie Trubow. I am a classically trained medical doctor. I went to med school at Tufts, graduated.
Oh, okay.
We were the class of 2000. So medical 2000, they called us the MOOs. So we were at MOO because it was M00. So I graduated in 2000, went into OB GYN, and I spent 4 years in residency and then 5 years as a classically trained OB/GYN. So I delivered babies and did surgery and did office care, and I was really all about women's care. And I had this epiphany. I know exactly when it was because I had my high school reunion. And I woke up on the Friday morning before my high school reunion in 2008. And I said to my husband, that's it, I have to leave my job. And he's like, okay. So yeah, he had already opened up a functional medicine practice. And I said, I'm going to come and practice with you. And no, just so you know, we had opened in July and it was November. He wasn't getting a salary yet. And so I say to him, I'm going to leave. I'm going to come on board. And he's like, we'll figure it out. It'll be great. So I go to my high school reunion and I tell everyone I'm leaving my job on Monday. On Monday, I give notice. Tuesday morning, I find out I'm pregnant with my third kid.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what have I done? Because I'm leaving my paid job for my unpaid job. We don't have benefits. We don't have
I was
pay.
just going to
He's
say
not taking a
medical.
salary. I'm due. And I had challenging pregnancies for the first two. So for the third one, the doctor's like, we're putting you on bed rest at 26 weeks. You're coming out of work. And I was like, I'm not going to do that, obviously. I mean, all the noise. And my husband's like, it'll work out. So ultimately, I left my classically trained job. I left delivering babies. I left surgery. I left what you would think of as traditional GYN care. And I went into just functional medicine for women. And because I was a gynecologist, I thought, I should really stick with women. And that was 2009. So that was 14 years ago. And fast forward, so I did functional medicine, which is really the gut and the adrenals and your minerals and nutrients, and looks at how do we get to the root cause of everything. And then about 4.5 years ago, I'll call that the second health crisis. The first was when I was 35, before I went into functional medicine. The second health crisis, I came back from France. It was an amazing vacation. We spent a week downtown France. And the month after I came home, I gained 9 pounds. My hair fell out like droves, just shedding. And I had a rash and brain fog and fatigue. And, it's really hard to treat yourself. But I was like, okay, it's got to be my thyroid, right? Gain weight, lose hair, must be thyroid. No, it wasn't. And then I said, okay, well, I'm 48 at the time. So it must be my hormones. So I checked my hormones and they're great. So now I'm like, okay, all disease starts in the gut. I'll check my gut. And my gut looked pretty good. And I have celiac disease and years of dysfunction. It looked pretty good. Okay. Now I'm stumped. And then I see this report that when Notre Dame burned, it released almost 500 tons of lead dust into the air. And if you spent time around Notre Dame when it burned, you got a lead exposure. And I went to France the week after Notre Dame burned, and we didn't go to Notre Dame to visit because it had burned down. They were still putting out the fire and making sure that the ceiling was stable so it wouldn't collapse on people.
Right.
But we spent a week right there. We just didn't go into Notre Dame. And I looked at my husband and I said, I had a lead exposure. So I'm ultimately a functional medicine physician with a focus on detox and the way in which environmental toxins make us fat, sick, and feel dead. So that's what I now specialize in because I was so sick. And it turns out that I had not only lead, but also mercury, 5 strains of mycotoxins, and a whole slew of the others. So flame retardants, gasoline fumes, phthalates, styrene, toluene, nail polish. I had all of those chemicals in me. And then I looked at my husband and I said, I'm such a dirty girl. And I said, and we're writing that book because I'm the poster child for healthy living. And if I have this, what does everyone else have? So that started us on this essentially path to get the word out and transform people's health, because it is making us really sick. And we don't even draw the connection most of the time.
No, absolutely. Well, and we don't not only not draw a connection, most people aren't even aware that it's out there,
Right.
Let alone that they can get it. Right.
Yeah. Ignorance is bliss, man, but knowledge is power.
Especially when it comes to your health.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. It really is scary when you think about it. I'm not trying to scare people, but it can be really scary because you don't know what's wrong with you. And there's all these different things out there.
Yeah, it's funny, Susan. I do want people to be scared. I don't want them to be paralyzed with fear, but I do want everyone listening to wake up and go, whoa, toxins made me sick and they're making you sick too. They are slowly killing us. We all think, let's explore this. We're both over 50 and we think typically, okay, well, I'm not as flexible as I used to be, or I don't have the brain function I used to have, or I don't have the energy I used to have, or maybe I've got now diabetes or high blood pressure or cardiovascular or high cholesterol. Everyone's on a statin, or my liver's not good, or I have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or whatever, right? I have irritable bowel. You fill in the blank. And then you say to yourself, well, I'm getting older. I'm not as young as I used to be. So of course I'm going to get some of these problems. And that's the fallacy, right? That thought, I'm getting older, so that's the problem. That's the problem. So the problem is not that you're getting older. The problem is that as you get older, you get exposed to piling on of more toxins. Think of this. This has been going on since you were in your mother's womb. Since you were a baby in the womb, you were getting exposed to 50% of your mom's toxins. And then you come out in the world and here you go, it just gets piled on. So by the time you hit your 50s and you're less resilient, that is something I would agree to. As you get older, you get less resilient, but you get less resilient because of the toxins exposure that are just piling on. And then you hit the tipping point and you can no longer deal with what your body is being exposed to. And then you get that diagnosis. And you say, well, I'm not as young as I used to be. And I say, well, you're also not as toxin free as you used to be. You got a lot more toxins that are weighing you down. And because they're so inflammatory, you're going to go down whatever you're sort of pre-programmed to go down. So I went down autoimmune hair loss, rash. Someone else goes down fatigue, brain fog, dementia. Someone else goes down a different autoimmune path, or cholesterol issues or metabolic issues. You can manifest in any way, but underlying it is inflammation. Underlying that are the toxins that we're getting deluged with. And it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah.
Well, and even just while you're talking, I'm thinking about all of the other things that we're dealing with much more so now, which are fires.
Should we talk about that? I mean, you're in California.
I'm remembering going out and going for a walk. My husband and I go for a walk every day. Going out, and I had my mask on, right? But that was when, and I'm sure you probably saw this on the news because it was televised all over. It was orange here.
Yes. And the scary part of that, Susan, is that so there are some heavy metals that get released into the environment, and pine needle trees sequester or uptake that mercury essentially, and they hold the mercury for us, and it's out of the environment. But when those trees burn, they release all their mercury back into the environment. It's airborne, but because it's a heavy metal, it falls to the earth, and it's on our crops, it's in our ocean, it's on us. And so we then get these massive mercury exposures, and we're wondering, like, why aren't I well? And you might not even think, oh, because I got exposed to a wildfire. But in my case, I already had mercury and lead, but the burning of Notre Dame was the straw that broke my back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it's not like I started with a clean slate. So at any point in time or any moment in time, if you get your exposure that breaks your back, that's when you click into, I'm just not right. And I was very fortunate because my exposure caught the world's attention, and it was studied and it was published, and within a few months, but people go years without a diagnosis. And that's the horrible part, is you just think, oh, well, multiple sclerosis, I just have it. No, you have toxins. It's not, that's the horrifying part, is we just think that we're supposed to get these problems as we age, but you're not.
Yeah. 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 Oh, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Well, and the other problem that goes along with that is, as we age, we can't fight it as well either.
Yes. Partly because of the exposure that's so some of the, I was just on a podcast with Dr. Michael Antonio. I mentioned to you off camera. He's this world-renowned expert in glyphosate and genetic modification and the biological impact of it. And so when you layer on the impact on our gut from the herbicides, pesticides, insecticides, the genetic modification, which has all of these unintended consequences, and we're eating these foods, and it's not genetically modified so that it will taste better or be more nutrient rich. It's genetically modified because it's better for the companies. They can grow it faster. They can pick it earlier. They can make it ready for sale. It'll stay shelf stable longer. None of those is in your benefit, right? Just to be clear. No. And so you get less resilient as you start to have more free radicals and oxidative damage and damage to your DNA, which is pro-cancer forming. And then you can't recover as well, because it's like pig pile on your resilience, and it can't be as elastic as it was.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
It's horrifying.
I know it is. It is. Every time I talk about it, it's just like, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah. And it's tempting to sort of say, well, I can't do anything about it. But
right.
You do have. So, I mean, this is what I do for a living, right? I work with people to walk their way through cleaning up their health. But I would say that's 20% of the game, meaning my expertise comes in at the last 20%. You have 80% of agency over your health and what you're being exposed to. And then if you're in the age group that we're in, you probably have a lot piled on. And so it just gets harder to deal with. And so you do need the expertise to actually pull it off. But you can do a ton yourself. And I'm happy to talk about those things if you feel like that would be valuable. So so let's talk. Okay.
That would be great. That would be great. Yeah. I mean, because I'm 68.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of things that I just go, that I go, God, and my husband goes, will you stop it? It's just because you're getting older. Just shut up,
Oh, okay, great. My response to that is, you are meant to be vital, vibrant, healthy, alive, able, and interested in intimacy until you're at least 100. And every decade is meant to get better than the one before. So when your husband says to you, stop with the fetching about your age, you can just say, well, I'm meant to be vital, vibrant, healthy, and alive, and able and interested in intimacy until I'm 100, at least. And so, and you're either on that path or you're not. They're only, it's binary. Either you are or you're not. So, okay. So let's talk about what's a human to do, right? So I think you first have to understand, how are you getting these exposures, right? So I found it easiest when I was thinking about this whole topic, because we wrote the book and I wanted to characterize it in a way that made sense to people, and then give you a roadmap for how to walk through it. So one, the first major category of how you get exposure is the stuff you put in your body deliberately. Think of your food, your liquid, your alcohol, anything that you put in your mouth. Because when you put things in your mouth, they can have herbicides, pesticides, insecticides. They can have artificial colors, artificial flavors, preservatives. They can be highly processed. They can be highly sugary. They can be straight up poison. And I am talking about alcohol. So when you put that in your body, anytime you ingest something, you have to deal with it, right? So either you're going to get it out of you or you're going to store it. And if you store it, it's going to go in your bones, your organs, your fat, or your brain, which is fat. That's where you store it. Okay. So one way you get it in is your food, water, drink. And are you drinking water or other things from single-use plastic water bottles that have endocrine disrupting agents in them that throw off your hormones, your sex drive, all of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have
so that's
the big bottles. We get the
glass bottles.
No, glass bottles are too heavy.
They are
to do. So we get the plastic. They're not exactly plastic, they're not like the same
it's
stuff.
Like a hard plastic.
Yeah. And then so that's most of the water that we use. Otherwise it's through the sink. I don't drink that water, but
it's amazing. 1 in every 6 deaths is tied to air and water quality. And that was from a 1989 study that was done out of Massachusetts. So 1989 was 34 years ago. And it's only gotten worse. So I am a huge proponent of, to the best of your financial ability, filter your water and your air. So, if what you can afford is a countertop filter, amazing. If you can afford a whole house filter, even more amazing. If you can do a whole house with a point of use for the water you drink the most, best in class. So, and you do what you can, right? But I always recommend filtering your water if you can. And in an ideal world, don't drink from things that are stored in plastic, because inevitably they do leach. And when we say endocrine disrupting, basically it looks like a hormone, it acts like a hormone, it binds tighter to your hormonal receptors. It's harder for you to process. And then you also have to process your regular hormone. So it just really throws the system off. So whenever possible, it's ideal to stop using that where you can, if you can, right? If you live in an area that doesn't have clean water, then make a better choice, right? If your water is unsafe, like in Flint, Michigan, your water's not safe. So it's a better option to drink from plastic, because otherwise you're going to get a lead exposure. That in the scheme of things is worse. So you're going to try to make a better choice. Level up as opposed to being perfect. Okay.
Sorry,
all right.
I'm
so your
trying to
food
get
and
away
water
from the sun.
Yeah, I know. It's tracking you. So
I know. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Better when it's foggy.
Yeah. So the food and water is one major category. And again, you have agency over that, right? You have control over that.
Yeah. Well, we eat all organic, anything that we can find, and like I say, the water, we get, I think it's Arrowhead delivered, which is better than what's coming out of the tap. Yeah. It's just not great. I mean, it may not be the best, but it's better,
an improvement, right? Like make an improvement.
Yeah.
So the next category is the things we put on our body. Now, it's both men and women. Women tend to put more product on their body, but I know a fair number of men who dye their hair and put product in it and are as vain as women are. So it's not only women, but this goes from your hair color, your hair products, and what are you putting in your hair, the shampoo, conditioner, and then gel or mousse or pomade, whatever it is, then the things to make your skin look good, and the makeup and the lotion and the products you're using to buff, wax, shave, whatever it is to remove hair. The clothing that we're wearing, if you take your clothes to the dry cleaner, you get formaldehyde, and your skin is your largest organ, so it will absorb. The things you put on your body, because your skin is your largest organ, it will absorb everything. Okay. So that's that category. And then the next category is all the other stuff. That's the stuff around you. That includes, there's some overlap, right? Because there's air quality falls into that bucket, but that's also the furniture you purchase, there's been a movement away from leather furniture and towards vegan leather. But what most people aren't thinking about is that vegan leather is plastic, and plastic is an endocrine disruptor.
Okay.
So it's cool that no cow was harmed. That's really good. However, what it's been replaced with is harmful for you. And so vegan leather, plastic, styrene, phthalate, toluene, gasoline fumes, the beds we sleep in have flame retardants in them. That disrupts the endocrine system. It's kind of nonstop. The car we drive in, it has 10,000 chemicals, including formaldehyde and toluene and plastics. I mean, it's just hammering it home, right? When we do construction on our homes, we use products, the paint, the glues, they all have VOCs unless you specifically purchase without. So there's all these ways that we get exposed. 1 in every 2 buildings has had mold exposure, water damage, which makes it moldy. So we get toxins that way. So it just piles on, Susan. And so when you start to think about how do you clean up your life and do that 80% that you can do on your own, you want to look at, okay, what category am I working on, right? Did I just buy a new car? Okay, filter the air in your car. Get an air filter. If you test your water and the quality is not as good as you would like it to be, that's an opportunity to get a point of use filter, right? Because it's good that you're not drinking it, but you're still showering in it or bathing in it.
Yeah.
And so it's worth looking at.
Not very often, but yeah.
Yeah.
Not where we are.
Oh, really?
No.
Because of the water shortage?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. Okay. So so all of these things you're going to want to start to level up. So with food, right? Like you said, go for organic, local if possible. Minimally processed, doesn't require a whole label to tell you what's in it, because you could look at it and go, yeah, I know what's in it. If you eat flesh, to go for grass-fed, organic, grass-fed, grass-finished.
Yep, do that.
Organic. We actually bought a cow a couple years ago, and it's not like you think. It's not like the cow was in my backyard and then I had to do something with it. It arrived pre-packaged in edible portions. But we had to buy a freezer
many years ago. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We had to buy a freezer for the cow. But it was nice because I knew the farmer. I knew where he was feeding his cows. I knew the quality of the grass, because if they spray the grass and the cows eat the grass, this is not organic, right? This is not clean. Yeah. So level up on your food wherever possible. And then probably the least popular thing, I say 2 things that nobody likes when I say. One is eliminate or significantly decrease your alcohol. Because it's poison. It's a toxin. And because it's so toxic, when you drink it, instead of doing your normal detox behaviors, alcohol is such a clear and present danger that you convert all detox behaviors into detoxing from the alcohol. Alcohol takes center stage. It overrides everything.
Interesting.
And then you don't deal with all those other chemicals I just rattled off. Because alcohol will kill you. And especially for us as women, it's even, if we don't deal with it, it's even worse on us. We can tolerate less. It takes us longer to get rid of it. So alcohol is even harder for women, but it's not good for men either, because it's taking you off of your typical detox route.
Oh, interesting.
I know. Okay. Nobody likes that.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't, every once in a while, I would say maybe a couple times a month, maybe we have a glass of wine. But that's it.
That's not so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all a spectrum, right? So if you're drinking, if you're female and you're drinking 2 glasses a night, that is far beyond what's safe for you. So I recommend cutting down. If you're drinking 2 glasses a week, again, that's far beyond what's safe for you. I'd recommend cutting down. But if you have 1 drink every couple of weeks, that's probably not moving the needle too much. But really the repetitive constant. Yes, because that is honestly wine's dirty little secret, because the wine is full of pesticides.
Oh my God, yeah. The grapes.
Yes.
Oh, please.
Yes. So definitely go for organic. One of the brands I don't drink at all, but one of the brands that we go to conferences and it's always there's Dry Farm wines. So that has a good reputation.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's low glycemic and it's low pesticides.
North of us. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have a good reputation, but
Yes.
organic wine in general, I would say, is a cut above, just because you're not getting a big dose of pesticides along with
That,
the alcohol.
yes. The regular, right.
Step up.
The stuff that just comes from alcohol. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I drank a lot more when I was younger, but not anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just decided it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to I don't want to be aged. I want to get old, but I don't want to be decrepit, right? I want to get old and be vital. And so alcohol was just for me one of those things. I said, okay, I don't want to put that in the system. It's already challenged enough between the genetics and the lifestyle and the piled on toxins. It's enough.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I know as far as like makeup and stuff, you can tell I don't do makeup because I've always had an allergy reaction to anything any makeup I've used. But I do do cream and stuff for my face, and I use Juice Beauty. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I don't know that brand, actually.
They're here in California. They're in Petaluma. And it's all organic.
It's great. Yeah,
they
so
make
you really
wonderful stuff. Yeah,
that's a good point. That's probably the most important thing, is that you look at what you're using, and if you know someone who knows someone and can recommend something, that's great. And then I always say you utilize the environmental working group, ewg.org, because you can search for products they've certified, and you can search by ingredient. So yeah, I mean, I think, and that can be really overwhelming for people, Susan, like, oh my gosh, I need to get rid of everything. Well, eventually maybe, but start with what you're running out of. So if you wear makeup, whatever you're running out of, your cover up, your mascara, your foundation, shampoo, whatever it is, that's the moment where it's impactful to level up. Don't even think about it when you just bought your 4-month supply of whatever that is. Don't think about it at that moment. Think about it when you're re-upping your order.
Yeah. No, that's very good advice. That's very good advice. Yeah. It's I've had bad allergies probably since I was, I don't know, 20 years old. And so that started me on looking at everything and being more careful and cleaning up. Right. So all of that stuff is just kind of normal.
Yeah, it's second nature now, right? Because it's just the way you live.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get greenwashed right now, where it says it's all natural and it says it's clean, and you're like, oh, cool. And then you realize this is not clean.
Yeah. Then you go look at what's on the bottle, and it's like, well, wait a minute. I don't use that. I don't let that on my skin.
That's not okay. Yeah. So it is important to slow down, look it up, level up. And the reason is that a ripple becomes a wave. So one change that you make, when you think about, it's a little overwhelming to change your whole life. So I'm not saying Monday you start and Tuesday you finish. I'm saying change one thing as you need it, as you think of it. So when you go to the grocery store, aim for organic, local, if possible, minimally processed. And you can do that ongoingly. And sometimes it's more expensive. So if you're finding that it's challenging to find something within your budget, I always say, okay, look at frozen, because it's been frozen at the peak of freshness, and it's organic, and it has it's and then you can do the same things with it that you would do with fresh, right? So you can substitute frozen organic for non-frozen fresh, non-organic. And so when you think about over the course of a year, if every time you're running out of something, you level up to something that's cleaner. It doesn't have to be perfect, but even better than what you have. Say you look it up on EWG, and the EWG gives it an 8 to 10 rating, which is red. Red's bad, right? It's like a red light. So don't run the red light. You might not be able to level up to a 1 to a 3, but maybe you could level up to a 4 or a 5, right? Make improvement at every stage. so that when you look back over the course of the year, you go, wow, I leveled up on my dry cleaning. I actually stopped dry cleaning my clothing because
we don't
there's
either.
no clean dry cleaning. That's just the way it is. It's not clean.
Yeah, well,
it's formaldehyde.
I was just going to say, by definition, it's chemicals.
Yeah, it's chemicals.
It's not soap, it's chemicals.
No. So we got rid of that. We leveled up on the things we clean our house with. We got rid of any air fresheners because those are extremely chemical laden. Candles, air fresheners, all of them are pretty nasty for you unless they're derived from lemon or orange peels or essential oils. Those are okay.
Yeah.
But the other ones are all full of chemicals. And the reason that they're so potent, the chemicals that are used make it stickier, and then it doesn't even go away.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's how fun. Yeah.
How fun. If you're going to do any DIY projects, make sure your paint is VOC free. If you're going to put a carpet down or glue tiles, make sure that the glue is VOC free. There's a lot of things you can do yourself over the course of the year that will take you from, wow, my environment was pretty unclean, to, hey, I've really done a much better job here. And you might not notice it as you change your mascara or your hair shampoo, but at the end of the year, because you're no longer filling up the pump with as many chemicals, your body doesn't have to work as hard. So it may not get rid of what you've stored in your fat, bones, organ, and brain, but it'll at least stop piling it on so that you have a chance of getting healthy. You just need a chance.
Yeah. It just opens the door a little bit, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It and for people who haven't been doing any of this or haven't been aware of any of this, it can be so overwhelming, because it's like, where do I start? Because everybody's first reaction is do it to everything. And it's like, no, don't do it to everything, or you will end up doing it to nothing.
That's where you get paralyzed. Analysis paralysis. Where do I start? You start. That's why you start with what you're running out of. What are you running? Start with food. I
like that.
You do it every day, right? So start with your food, level up. And then when you're like, oh, I'm out of blah, 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 whatever, lipstick, mascara, shampoo, hair dye. I don't care what that is. As you're out of it, that's the time to level up. Because it's not a clean sweep. Unless look, if you're listening and you have 3 personal assistants and unlimited funds, sure.
Go for it.
That can be their project, right? That's one of your assistants, or 3 of your assistants' project is to transform your world of health by decreasing your chemical exposures. That's cool, but most of us aren't in that situation. So as you run out is when you level up.
Yeah. No, that's such good advice. It really is. Yeah. And it's well, and the nice thing about the world these days is that organic is much more accessible.
Yes.
Because it used to be, if you lived in certain parts, say certain parts of California, certain parts of, I'm not sure, I was going to say New York, but that's probably not accurate. But just different places that just the awareness of that started earlier.
Yeah. The coasts, I think the coasts were a little bit more aware of the quality of the food. But it's definitely permeated throughout the country.
Oh, it has. Oh my God. Yeah. And, I mean, even if you look at some place like Whole Foods, most things that they sell regular and they sell organic.
Yep. So go for organic wherever possible. Yeah. And my championing of organic is really about the less work your body has to do, the healthier it can be. Because that sounds sort of counterintuitive, but even if you have the healthiest food and you don't have any toxins in your body products and your beauty products and your skincare and all that, and you got rid of the flame retardants in your bed and your air quality is filtered, you still live on this earth. If you live on this earth, you are getting deluged with toxins. There's EMFs, there's plastics. Look, we have the microphone, the mouse, the keyboard. It's all plastic. The EMFs from the lights that make it good on camera, AMFs. Then there's the stress, which is its own form of toxin. So the reason it matters is that it's like water torture, right? We're just getting we're under the waterfall of toxins. So everything is impactful, but what it really does is it helps the body be less deluged and overloaded, because the body's just every body of ours, because we live on the earth, is overloaded. So we're trying to pull that off so you don't feel awful.
Well, and I'll say to everybody out there as well, is that if you pick one or two things and do it, and you start feeling better, then you will start to get excited about doing this.
It's also a feed forward loop, right? The better you feel, the better you feel, the better you feel, the more you can do, the more brain space you have, the better your brain works. So that's why I say start with food, because most of us don't realize the impact that the quality of our food is having. And so if you can start with making your food minimally processed, as organic as possible, local if possible, low sugar, no artificial colors, no artificial flavors, and little to no alcohol. And if you drink coffee, make sure that it's tested for pesticides and mold, because coffee is notoriously moldy and covered in pesticides. So it's one of those invisible. And tea, right? Tea bags contain plastic, right? Not only the tea, but the plastic, that it doesn't have a plastic bag. Those tea bags are often plastic, which just blows my mind.
Right.
So you want to work on leveling up, because especially, I would say, I mean, food is medicine. Food is medicine. It's not like medicine.
Oh my God, yeah.
And so if you feel better and you give your body what it needs, you'll feel better. And then you'll be able to do more and be more productive.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And in the long run, it actually can end up being less expensive, because you don't have to go to the doctor. You don't have to, do all of these other things that cost even more money.
Let's talk about that, Susan. Let's really drill into this, because the majority of illnesses that we deal with today are man-made. And what I mean by that is not to blame the victim, right? We're all the recipient of this just sort of behemoth move. But cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease. So cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, polycystic ovarian syndrome, metabolic syndrome, which is pre-diabetes, or type 2 diabetes, all autoimmune diseases, degenerative diseases, including Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's. Let's just start with those 4 diseases. Okay. I'm going to leave cancer out of that for now, but these 4 diseases are environmental diseases. So when you start to peel off the toxins and the impact of the toxins, you start to decrease your risk for these diseases, because underlying all of these diseases is inflammation. And inflammation is caused by environmental toxins. They're extremely corrosive to the body. So when you think about, okay, I have a couple family members who have diagnoses and are taking medication, and they say to me, well, I'm well controlled, so I don't really have any signs of it. I'm like, I disagree. You're on all these medications, right? You're on a medication for your blood pressure, and a medication for your blood sugar, and a medication for your gut, and a medication for your headaches, and a medication for your cholesterol. That's a pretty big indicator, right? Like, that's not the way it's supposed to be. And so if you can peel off the toxins to a meaningful amount, you can start to decrease your risk of autoimmune disease, metabolic, cardiovascular, and degenerative diseases, because one critical pathway that occurs is inflammation from toxins. There's inflammation from stress. There's inflammation from alcohol, but alcohol is a toxin. Stress is a toxin. It all comes back to what type of toxin are you overloaded on?
No, and that makes so much sense. It is interesting, because people think, oh yeah, well, as I get older, I'll get one of these.
No.
Right.
As you get more toxic, you'll get one of those.
Well, yeah, no, I agree, but I'm just saying, I think, it's
Yeah.
a change in, what's the right word?
I think it's a paradigm
Viewpoint.
change, right? Like it's
Yeah.
really looking at health
Hmm.
differently than we were sort of brought up to look at it, right? Especially the people who raised us, they died at 60. They didn't live
Not
long
my
and prosper.
parents, but
Oh,
yeah.
they were long-lived?
Oh my God, yeah. My mom was in her mid 90s, and I
Mm,
don't want to say she was going strong because she was having some issues, but that we won't
yeah,
go into that. That's a whole nother discussion. But she just went on her own. I mean, she
yeah.
just stopped eating and drinking and
Actually,
went.
let me take it back because the generation, it sounds like your mom and my grandma, although we're
Hmm.
13 years apart. No, wait, we're
Hmm.
15 years apart. So we're like smack in the middle of generations, essentially.
Hmm.
So my grandmother died at 99, but she was not, she was the no plastic, no pesticide generation.
Uh-huh.
And then my mom is 79, and she's in the generation who got, think of it, we got the microwaves, the plastics, the pesticides, the medication,
And the
broad
hippies.
medication.
Don't forget about the hippies, because
The
they
hippies,
said
but the hippies were
they
like,
threw it all out.
I know they were very clean.
Yeah.
But then my generation is exposed to exponentially more than my grandmother
Yeah.
was.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's really so
Yes.
it's there's I think that my generation's life expectancy is less than my grandmother's, which is shocking. But it's
Hmm.
because of all these exposures that we get that
Yeah.
cause genetic
Right.
changes that make us sick.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's pretty, but it is, there's some things you can't change, right? You can't change necessarily where you live, but you can change how you live
Right.
where you live.
Yes.
You
Yes.
can put in
Absolutely.
air filters. If you're in an area prone to wildfires, put in air filters so that your air stays clean.
Mm.
Filter your water. Like there's just a lot of things. So that's where that 80%, you can cover
Hmm.
80% of it yourself. You have the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I assume that you cover all this in your book.
We do. Actually, the book is meant to be a roadmap because it can feel
Ah.
overwhelming. So every
Uh-huh.
chapter has
Yeah.
the top tips, and what every chapter has a different
Wow.
focus. And so
Uh-huh.
and that's why we wrote the book, so that you would have
Yeah.
something to take away and be able to make changes in your life that are meaningful and get you healthier than you are now.
Right. Right.
Because you're meant to
Right.
feel freaking amazing. And
Yeah.
I'll go to the mat on arguing that one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, anyways, I think we probably should wrap up here. And I will well, first off, give people the website for where they can get in touch with you.
We have two different companies. One is a bricks
Okay.
and mortar.
Hmm.
That's we take insurance, we do functional medicine. It's a membership practice that's
Uh-huh.
based in Massachusetts. So that's fivejourneys.com. And that's for people who say, okay, I've done that 80%, and now I really need to get my chronic illnesses resolved or reduced. So
Uh-huh.
that's what we do in our practice. And then
Okay.
we have an online brand for people who may not be able to get to Massachusetts. That's called drwendie.com. And on
Uh-huh.
that brand, we do coaching and programs, community programs and
Oh,
testing, and we have
okay.
supplements, and
Uh-huh.
that's drwendie.com. So it just depends where people are for how
Right.
they want to get involved. And then we have a free gift
Okay.
for the listeners because maybe you want to get started, but you don't know how. So at
Right.
drwendie.com, we have chapter 1 of the book to see if you like my
Uh-huh.
style. We have
Okay.
a non-toxic guide to healthy living, and we have a quiz that you can take to understand how toxic are you and what do you need to do about it. So those are all in the drwendie.com/gift.
Okay. Great. Great. So I will also put that in the show notes. Although I'm not sure how many. It's actually kind of interesting on a totally different subject, but I know even myself, when I listen to podcasts, I very rarely look at the show notes.
Mm.
I just listen to the podcast.
But they're a thing. It's like an institution.
I know exactly, and I always put stuff in there, and I'm assuming that somebody goes
Someone looks
goes
at it.
there and looks at it,
Yeah.
but I don't know, because like I said, I don't. I don't do it.
Right. Well, they'll find it.
Whatever. Exactly. It's in the podcast. If they want it, they can listen
Yep.
to the podcast, that part of it again, and
Yep.
write it down. Novel concept. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me
So
on.
much great information. And
Thank
with
you.
that, I will. Where'd my? Did we not? No, it says it's recording.
It's recording. It should be up in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. You can stop it. Up.
Oh, it moved. Okay.
They
Didn't used
moved
to
it.
do
Yeah,
that.
they changed it all around.
Damn. Just in a week. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you very much. One more thing that you helped.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Yes. And I will say, which I always have to say at the end, which is that, and this is really kind of funny because it's not totally true, but neither of us are doctors. This is not medical advice. And please, if you want to follow up, go get Wendie's book, contact her, or find somebody in your neighborhood that you can work with for sure. That's it. See you all next week.